So I'm going to do a very quick brief on what Tech Shop is. Who here has not been to one? Okay, so talk to your friends. You got to come visit, at least just to kind of give it context. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of the fundamental economic drivers on what's going on and why. And part of the reason I want to do that is I want to assure you, and most of you already know this, you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. This is the real deal. Things are completely changing. Welcome to the third industrial revolution, and it's being driven by a range of really interesting things. And I'm going to finish with a string of prototype/projects that Tim said early on. You know, the first thing is you have fun. The second thing is you start to change the world. Well, trust me, friends, people are in these maker spaces changing the world, and I'll show you what those are. And we use this as kind of our standard deck to try to help economic development departments, states, government agencies, and large firms understand that this is not some wacko fringe fad. Well, maybe it is. But pretty soon all your friends and family and kids are going to be part of it. So for those of you who haven't visited, Tech Shop's 17,000 square feet, so really good sized. Every machine tool, woodworking tool, plastics tool, electronics tool, laser lab, computer lab, water jet cutter, 14 by 18 foot, 5 inches thick, 4 by 8 sheet of steel, plastic, anything on the planet. Literally everything you need, or almost literally everything you need to make anything you want. What's interesting is because all of the tools are there, we overcome a threshold moment that most of our friends in the hacker spaces don't get to experience, and that is we attract everybody. So if you're a bender, you come. If you're into textiles and quilting, you come. If you're into doing graphic design, you come. And so the richness and the diversity of the 950 members we have in San Francisco alone is the community that is quite remarkable. So that's Tech Shop. That's enough of that. If you want to learn more about it, come to the talk on Saturday. So let's keep going. We'll switch to that. We've done that already. So the creative revolution is being driven by a group of folks, right? So there are 40 million creatives in the United States, according to Dr. Richard Florida's work of about 8 years ago. They're engineers, artists, I love that, architects, attorneys, writers, so forth. They actually control half of all the disposable income. Let me repeat that. Half of all the disposable income, $470 billion a year. I like the word disposable because that's essentially what they do with it. One of the reasons is because there aren't maker spaces and hacker spaces everywhere. So $474 billion. According to Clay Shirky, NYU, they spend billions of hours a year just watching television. So imagine that. We have 40 million of the most creative people the planet has ever seen graduating from amazing universities, spending hundreds of billions of dollars on frappuccinos, McMansions and urban assault vehicles, and I love urban assault vehicles. This is a little daunting, by the way. All my heroes are here right now. Congratulations. This is a great group. So, one of the hypotheses here is what would happen if you took the creative class or a small portion of the creative class, got them to use a small piece of that disposable income, put them in a community where they started asking hard questions like how do you really change the world with access to these kinds of tools? What would they do with it? Well, they would change the world. They would. Actually, they already have. And I'll kind of show you that. But why now? I mean, why didn't this happen 15 years ago or 20 years ago? I mean, the mill and the lathe has been around for literally hundreds of years. We used to have farm animals that would run them, or the maid would literally walk on something. It would run a little wooden mill, and then you would cut stuff. This is 300 years ago. Well, what happened when the steam engine came along is capital developed, and you now needed access to capital and steam boilers and large pieces of machinery in order to take advantage of kind of pseudo-mass production. And that completely wiped out the crafts and the guilds, right? Actually, at one point, little history here, France, in order to make sure that the tailor revolution, tailor as in people who were sewing things in 1754, tried to overthrow the government, they actually outlawed guilds. because they were opposed to putting steam engines into large factories that allow us to have, fun shirts and so forth. That was 250 years ago. Electricity came along, capital continued to consolidate. These tools got more sophisticated, more powerful, doing amazing things, and we end up into the 60s in mass customization, mass production, right? Now what's interesting there is there are some subtle things going on or not so subtle things going on, right? The customer sacrifice associated with a mass-produced item is something that designers really understand, but we as consumers don't fully get entirely. So when you buy the old, I use the business card case, right? So you buy the mass-produced business card case, and it's made out of brass, and it's now only 50 cents or whatever. Cool, because you can produce boatloads of them and not charge a whole lot of money. I am getting somewhere with this, by the way. So this is a 3D printed business card case. Now, it didn't cost me $3, it was like 35 or something like that. But the filigree on here is something that you can't really do in an injection mold. It's got my name on the side. So the customer satisfaction piece with this is way up. The price sacrifice associated with it was enough for me to overcome and say, you know what, I'm going to buy this. And so when you look at customer satisfaction and dissatisfaction and ask what's happening when we continue to drive down the cost of the first unit, the first 100 units, the first 1,000 units, interesting things happen. Actually, really interesting things happen. You combine that with the internet, and what happens is the long tail, Chris Anderson's long tail, according to the Social Science Research Council last year, has shifted. So consumers are using search and find cost, that's COS, you got a Nobel Prize for it. They're using search and find reduced cost to be able to find products that dissatisfy them less. And we're combining that with machine tools and other tools that are enabling us to produce shorter and smaller lots at price points that consumers want. So we are moving into this mass customization world. Now here's the other really amazing thing, is those tools now, did I get to that, are cheap, powerful, and easy to use. We got a $17,500 CNC Tormach, great tool. The software on that from Siemens 15 years ago was $100,000, right? That's not something you're going to be able to put in your basement. We had a digital readout on one of our lathes, and we had a former general manager from GE come through. He ran the train engine division. He looked at it and said, wow, that looks exactly like the ones I bought 15 years ago. I outfitted the entire train line. I had 10 lathes, and we put these DROs on it. You think about the DRO is all about Moore's Law. You also have the stepper motors and the fine controls, and all of that stuff has come down over the years. That was $150,000 for the DRO. We now get the entire machine with the DRO for $4,700. And now with 123D Make and those software tools, we are training people how to use these tools in 3 class sessions. And we are helping people like David Lang move from zero to maker. Here he is. And he's now potentially commercializing an underwater remote-controlled vehicle robot company. Didn't know how to make anything, and 9 months later, he's kicking my ass. That is an amazing place to be. So those are the economic drivers. Fast, powerful, cheap, incredible creative class, lots of disposable income that they're looking for opportunity to spend in better ways. And the tweetable moment there is the largest untapped resource on the planet is the free time, disposable income, and creativity of the creative class. And we are on the cusp of unleashing that amazing group of talent over these next few years. So what do people do when they get access to these kinds of tools? Where's Andy? There you go. That's Andy's jetpack. That pilot broke 1 leg and 2 ribs, I'm told, learning how to fly. So that is not Andy. That's the world's fastest electric motorcycle. It did 216 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. That's a prototype, right? They built 1. They're getting ready to build 14. And eventually, PCH will be producing them in China. This is a small business. This is a remote-controlled video conference telepresence robot. This is one of our staff members now. He couldn't afford a Segway, so obviously you do the logical thing and build it yourself. More importantly, he upgraded it. So that's the world's first 2-wheeled self-balancing electric bar stool. I know I've needed that. And then we had some breakouts, right? So, Patrick Buckley did so well with the Dodo case so quickly that he didn't have time to pull his Kickstarter project together. He literally had $1 million in sales in the first 3 months. And yeah, that's a Dodo case right there. So 2 years later, the president's using a makerspace created. Here are the things that have changed the world. So the hypothesis, if the creative class gets access to these kinds of tools at these kinds of prices, $125 a month, what do? This is Square. This is 3 weeks of prototypes. 1, 2, 3. Man, old school, 3 prototypes would have taken me 6 months and $100,000. This cost them a couple grand at most, and they did it in 3 weeks. They got a $1 billion valuation, for those who aren't familiar with it. This is the world's most efficient data cooling solution. They went into a head-to-head. Eventually, the DOE came in and said, I got to help you guys, got them $3 million. They went into a head-to-head competition with IBM, Emerson, BAA, and others, beat them all by 15% in a market that consumes $250 billion a year in annual electricity. 2 boys, $20,000 basically in their spare time. This is a nitrogen detection device that's going to help reduce the size of the runoff zone, because reducing fertilizer on the Mississippi Delta will help with that 8,500 square mile problem at the end. This is the world's cheapest drip irrigation system. And this one's one of my favorites. Came out of the D school, but because they couldn't get access to the machines quickly enough to be able to go through their graduation, they came to Tech Shop. Most importantly, sat next to a chemical engineer who asked Naganon, one of the co-founders, what do you really know about polymer chemistry? Well, what I learned at Stanford's, school was pretty good, but it wasn't 30 years of polymer chemistry. So actually the core technology that's embedded in this blanket that's going to save 100,000 babies' lives in the next 5 years was donated by another creative community member who stumbled across the project in Palo Alto. So what happens when the creative class gets access to the tools of the Industrial Revolution for the cost of a bad Starbucks addiction? They change the world. And so what I truly believe that Economist article that came out last week, welcome to the third industrial revolution. I don't know that I like the word industrial, because I think it's way more creative than that, but we are literally on the cusp of the next industrial creative explosion. And all I want to do is encourage this group to don't let any naysayer say that this isn't going to take over the world, because it is. This is the biggest hope. These are the most likely way that we're going to get out of our problems. We're going to sort it out. We're going to grow our way out. And it's the creative class around the globe that's going to be able to do it. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. This is what prototypes can do for you.